So you're having a great day, everything is working out, everything is kind of cool and chill and relaxed, you are busy doing you, and then all of a sudden shit hits the fan. You have a massive bill in your mailbox, somebody calls you to give you really bad news, you see a picture of your SP with another dude or another chick online, or somebody is simply pissing you off tremendously. All of these things belong to the category of triggers and being triggered. And in this video we're gonna talk about what triggers are, why they happen in first place, how to handle them, deal with them, how to stop yourself from acting upon them once you are in the reactive mode right after the trigger. And I also want to talk about the question of whether or not being triggered, getting triggered and allowing a trigger to actually play out has any negative influence on your manifesting game. I'm Nis, I'm a mindset coach, and my co-hosts for today are Beanie and Burrito. First thing I want you to know is that triggers come in so many different shapes and sizes. They can be induced by basically literally everything that you can imagine. And they can also manifest within yourself and within your behavior in so many different shapes and forms that it's basically an infinite amount of variety when it comes to triggers. But there is one thing that every single trigger has in common, and that is they are all connected to our core wounds. Now, the 6 major core wounds that I'm talking about on my channel are abandonment, rejection, betrayal, humiliation, neglect, and injustice. Those 6 core wounds are on a biological level in our brains, areas where we have open nerve endings, within the areas that are connected to the event that has caused this core wound. A negative emotional trigger happens when the electric current in our brain runs through one of these areas. So when one of these areas, those neural connections in our brain, get reactivated by an outside circumstance or person or situation, or however you want to call it. I specified negative emotional trigger because we are also getting triggered in the positive direction, but these are the triggers that we are not struggling with, right? These are the triggers when we are like super happy, over the moon, on top of the world, oh my god, so excited, I can't believe it. These are the positive triggers, and usually we just allow them to play out because they feel quite comfortable and quite nice for us, right? So nobody really struggles with them, but essentially it's the same thing. But if you have trauma in that area and that area gets reactivated, you literally have physical pain. And then what happens is that your body responds with the fight or flight mode. That's all. It is really important for you guys to understand that there is a direct one-to-one correlation between your core wounds and your triggers. I'm gonna just give you a few examples. If you want to dive deeper into the topic, I will post a playlist where I list all of these 6 core wounds at the end of this video. Let's say you do see your SP talking to or potentially even flirting with somebody else, and you immediately get triggered and you feel jealousy rising in you. This jealousy belongs to the core wound of rejection. Or somebody mistreats you, is rude to you, calls you names, or is just like a piece of shit to you. This belongs, the resentment that you feel and the anger that you feel belong to the core wound of humiliation. Somebody forces you to do something that you don't want to do, or punishes you for something that you didn't do, where you are not guilty. This belongs to the wound of injustice. So my first advice to you, if you struggle with triggers and you really want to get down to the core of them, is to write down when you feel triggered and try and find a correlation with these wounds. The more clarity you have, the more self-awareness you gain from it, and the more control and logic you can bring into the situation. When you get triggered and you know you have the awareness established in your brain that this is due to a wound, a core issue that was induced years ago by somebody else, then your approach to that trigger or that situation will be completely different from when you're not aware of it and your emotions are just running the show and overruling you. So awareness, understanding, seeing the connections, seeing the correlations, and dealing logically with all of that is the first thing that I advise you to do. So let's say you've done the work, you know exactly why something happens, why something is triggering you, you know the correlation to your past, you know everything. but yet here you are still getting triggered, still feeling the emotional sensation of being triggered. How do we deal with this shit? Here it's important to decipher between active trigger responses and passive trigger responses. Active trigger responses are, for instance, fear, anxiety, panic, the need to withdraw, the need to go away, tense up, be like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Backing off, essentially. This would be the flight mode getting activated in you. The flip side of that, the fight mode, would be when you feel anger, when you all of a sudden get a massive amount of adrenaline released into your bloodstream and you feel aggressive and you want to lash out, you want to yell, you want to cry, you want to maybe slap somebody, kick something. Those flight or fight mode responses are the active trigger responses. The passive trigger responses are the ones where you do not react, where you do not feel the need to either run away or lash out, but where you feel the effect of the trigger internally towards yourself. Sadness, regret, doubt, bad self-talk. Those belong to the category of passive trigger responses. So basically, if you are in interaction with an outside circumstance, whether it's attacking or running away from it, it's active. If it's only towards you, it's you versus you, then it's the passive one. I use different approaches and strategies for both of them. So let's start with the active trigger responses. The first thing that I want you to do is to try and take a step back. Whether it's fear or it's aggression, it doesn't matter. The second you feel this, I used the term in last week's video, I'm going to use it again, that you have stepped over the point of no return, the trigger has happened and your body, your psyche, your entire being has already reacted towards it. You are still in charge of what you're doing next, but you need to disrupt the chain of events. And the best way to do this is to force yourself, leave the situation completely. If you can do this, if you can just stand up, walk to the bathroom, walk into the kitchen, go away, leave the situation, even if it's just for 20 seconds, even if it's just like a small, tiny little amount of time. Remove yourself from the situation. Some people consider this rude, but honestly, it's way more rude to act upon the trigger than to just go away for a few seconds or a minute or two. Once you have removed yourself from that situation, breathe. I recommend a breathing pattern where the inhale is shorter than the exhale. So for instance, a good breathing pattern would be you breathe in for 4 seconds and you count those 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 6 or 7 seconds and you count them too. The effect that this has on your body is that A, you are busy counting, so your brain is occupied with something other than what just happened, and B, you are breathing out more oxygen than you take in, and the physical effect that it has, it is calming you down. It tunes down the overactive brain a little bit. So this is what I recommend you to do. Once you have calmed yourself down a little bit, I want you to ask yourself either one or all of these questions. Side note, I use all of these questions. I've been doing this for years and I'm still doing this when I'm triggered. First one would be that I always ask myself, do I need to be an asshole right now? Do I have to be, am I forced to be an asshole right now? The answer is no. Second question, do I need to act right now? Is it absolutely, inevitably necessary for me to act in this state that I am right now? Do I have to act, react now? No, I do not have to. And the last question, is there a chance that this is a misunderstanding? Is there a chance that I am misinterpreting the situation? Is there a chance that this person's intention is not to attack me or to betray me, to humiliate me, to abandon me, or whatever the fuck kind of type of trigger you are experiencing, right? Is there a chance that I am misinterpreting the situation? Yes, there is. When you have asked yourself these questions, you have already shifted. Your brain has already calmed the fuck down, and you have already shifted from I am the victim of my emotions to I am in charge of deciding whatever the shit I'm gonna do about this situation, right? And then you can come back to the situation if it's still there, right? Sometimes we do have long-term triggers. Long-term triggers, that's what I call them, are the ones where you get initially triggered by something. Let's say you see a picture of your SP with somebody else, and your instant trigger is jealousy, and your instant response to this trigger is to send them a text where you tell them to go fuck themselves. Cheater, I hate you, please die, right? This is your instant reactions. Just an example, doesn't need to be real for you. So you want to do that, but you hold back. You're like, no. Breathe in, breathe out. Do I have to be an asshole? Do I have to react? Do I have all the fucking information to really judge the situation completely right now? Yes or no? No. Okay, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna calm the fuck down. So you shift your focus onto something else and you move on in your life. But then a few hours later, you feel the urge coming up again. And again, you drop it, you move on. But then you go to bed, you fall asleep, you wake up the next morning, and you have maybe a split second where you feel normal before that shit hits you again. You're like, oh god damn it, I need to text them, I need to call them, I need to tell them that they suck, whatever, right? So those are the long-term triggers. They happen because you didn't change your mind about the subject. So yes, you dropped them, you held back on acting upon them, but you have not changed your mind about this. So when this happens to you, when you sense that a trigger comes up over and over again, or an urge to do something where you know I should not do this, or I don't actually want to do this, but a part of me really wants to do this. When you have that, the best thing that you can do is to really sit down and calmly look at what thoughts you actually have, and then see how you can change them, how you can look at the situation from a different perspective to change your mind about this. Unless you change your mind about the subject, I can guarantee you these triggers will come up again. Sometimes it takes a freaking year until this trigger shows its ugly face again. But unless you change your mind about this, and unless you work on your thinking patterns in regards to that situation that has triggered you, or unless you have healed the core of it, this trigger will show up again. So be aware of these things, okay? Now let's go to the passive trigger responses. That's the negative self-talk, the doubt, the regrets, and all of this feeling of internally, you making yourself your biggest enemy essentially. When something like this happens, and this can be, for instance, the result of being humiliated, that you get triggered, you don't actually act upon this, but the second you go home, you feel like shit, because all of a sudden you believe, yeah, what if I actually am as stupid or shit as this person just told me that I am. So when you have these, there is no need to breathe or to hold yourself back or anything. When you experience a trigger like that, the best thing you can do for yourself is to cry it out or let it out. Like really let those emotions out. Allow the trigger to play out. Allow your thoughts to have one round of reasoning for why you are thinking that way, why you are talking badly about yourself, why you are regretting. Allow one circle. Best thing you can do is to write that down. Once you're done with this, you gotta own this shit. And you gotta be like, yeah, well, I do feel like I fucked this up. I do feel ashamed of my behavior. Maybe I was drunk and I did something super embarrassing. And yeah, maybe I do feel shitty about that. Maybe yesterday, the entire day, I felt super ugly, and then all of a sudden somebody made a rude comment about the way I look, and it hit me and I felt bad about it. So I'm gonna write this down. I felt ugly. I had the feeling that I'm ugly. What you gonna do about it? That's for now. This is your truth, and this is okay. It doesn't take anything away from you. Once you are emotionally satisfied when it comes to these things, once you have allowed the negative voice in the back of your head to speak, and you have owned it, and you have validated whatever the fuck this part of you has to say, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool, that's how it is, This is when you are in the position to then change your mind. And the best way you can do this, and I mentioned this technique in 100 million videos before, is by writing down or stating out loud, regardless of all of that, I'm still perfect. Not ideal, but perfect. I am, and I'm still worthy of it. I'm still worth it. I'm still worth having everything that I want. I am still a perfect fucking being. I'm still allowed to be nice to myself. I'm still allowed to love myself. I can be ashamed of my past behavior and still be gentle with myself and love myself. I can feel ugly and still be nice to myself and gentle to myself and love myself. I can feel fat or stupid or unpopular or insecure or incapable of doing something, whatever the fuck it is, inadequate, to sum it all up, and still love myself and be gentle to myself. I can do this, I'm allowed to do this, and that's what I'm gonna do, right? And once you have declared that, then you can say, okay, that's the old me, I do not subscribe to this anymore. This is what I want to think and feel about myself instead. And then you just gotta understand and realize and internalize this. Nobody's opinion matters but yours. It is really only you and your opinion and your judgment and your evaluation of yourself that matters. Nobody else gets to say jack shit about you. Not your mother, not your boyfriend, not your teacher, not your boss, not your co-worker, not the ass face from, I don't know, school. Not even me, not even my opinion counts, okay? It is you and your opinion. So you can choose to have whatever the fuck opinion you want about yourself. In general, if you have triggers over and over and over and over and over again, I advise you to heal your core wounds, because I guarantee you, you will not get triggered like this anymore. If you remove the source, if you heal, you will experience triggers in a whole different way. Doesn't mean that you never get triggered again. I sometimes get triggered, but on a scale from 1 to 10, when back in the days I was a 12 or a 15, sometimes a 22. Nowadays, when I get triggered, it's maybe a 0.5, and it's like for 5 seconds, and then I'm like, It's easy. It makes it a lot easier, okay? So invest in yourself. Take the time to heal yourself. Last thing I want to talk about is the question of whether or not triggers have an impact on your manifesting game. Yes, they do, but it's a positive one if you know how to use it. A trigger essentially, and I hinted towards this 100 times in this video already, a trigger essentially shows you where you have room for improvement. A trigger shows you where you have trauma in your brain. A trigger shows you what patterns, thinking structures are not in alignment with the person that you want to be, that has the things that he or she wants to have. A trigger shows you what Pandora's box you need to open, what kind of dark corner of yourself you need to explore with a little flashlight there, right? So triggers are impacting your manifesting game, but not in a detrimental, oh my god, we all need to die way. And people really need to chill the fuck out in this whole conscious creation, law of your mother, law of my butthole manifesting community. People really need to chill the fuck out. A trigger or being triggered is never gonna fuck up your manifestation. It's not gonna fuck up your process unless you allow it to. Allowing a trigger to fuck up your process and your manifesting game looks like down spiraling, and then shaming yourself and down spiraling a little bit more, and then shaming yourself a little bit more, and then a little bit of blame, and a little bit of everything is shit and nothing is working, and a little bit of I'm gonna play the victim. This is when you are putting a hold on the type of reality that you want to experience, not on the manifestation itself. Okay, so a trigger can be a really positive thing if you know how to make use of it, which you, if you've watched this video by now, know. So yeah, you don't need to be afraid of triggers. This like whole, you need to avoid reacting and being triggered. Again, I mentioned it in the beginning. A positive trigger is also a trigger. When I I don't know, when I get a present out of nowhere, when I hear good news, when I see my kitty cats being super adorable and cute and I have a reaction to that, my brain also gets triggered. So why would I demonize the negative aspect that I only judge to be negative because it feels different and a little bit uncomfortable on a physical level, but I welcome the positive? That doesn't make sense to me. My body is capable of experiencing both, and the only reason why I'm alive is because I wanted to expand. That's it. The universe expands in all goddamn directions, not just in the positive one, not just in the like, ooh, this is like where the light is, I'm gonna just expand, only expand into that direction, and all of the like slightly uncomfortable things, I just deem them, judge them to be negative, and I'm not gonna expand into that direction. Now, that's not what the universe does. Universe is expanding, period. You are expanding, period. I am expanding. This is what we're here to do, right? So might as well put the benefit of the doubt on all of those situations that look like shit is hitting the fan. Give them the credit and the possibility that they can be in your favor, that this can be a part of a bridge of events that needs to happen for you to get there. And it quite literally is that. Because if you realize where the trigger is coming from and you are handling it correctly in all the ways that I explained it to you in this video, then you actually have a chance to overcome this and to not experience it anymore. It's done. It's over. The purge is bye-bye, essentially, right? Okay, that's it. I'm gonna maybe let me see if I can zoom in a little bit closer here on the little babas and remove myself a little bit. Look at those nuggets. Aren't they beautiful? Okay, that's it. Love you all. See you next Monday and bye-bye.